You're listening to the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, we're chatting with Martine Cadet about how to take the stress out of using social media to get visible with your business. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, a registered dietitian, nutrition business coach, and online entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience in online business. And I'm here to show you everything I've learned about creating a life and a business that nourishes you. On this podcast, we'll talk about the lifestyle habits, practical strategies, mindset shifts, and leaps of faith required to build a healthy body, a powerful mind, a strong spirit, and a successful business. Hey there, welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm Laura Schoenfeld, your host, and we have another conversation about social media today. So we did have this conversation with our Instagram expert, Annie Miller, a couple weeks ago, and I was really excited to bring on to the show today Martine Cadet, who uses a lot of different types of social media platforms, but especially loves using Facebook to help grow her business. And what I wanted to do is bring another social media expert on because I know that there's a lot of you out there who are entrepreneurs. Maybe you're a nutritionist or a dietitian, or maybe just any type of entrepreneur or a coach, someone who's got a personal brand that wants to be able to reach more of their potential clients and to show up more consistently and to really get in front of people who can benefit from their services, but maybe feels a little bit overwhelmed or even repulsed by social media, which I totally get it. I felt that way before, so I understand it can be a little bit daunting to participate on social media, and sometimes it's easy to think, oh man, I wish I could just get rid of this stuff and not do it. And to be fair, you can do that, right? That's an option for you. However, when I think about social media, I look at it as a tool. And like any tool in our business, it's something that can be used effectively and efficiently, or it can be used in a way that wastes our time and really isn't very effective. So that's why I wanted to bring Martine on the show today to talk a little bit about how to make your social media use more effective and to really take the stress out of using social media, since I know it's really easy to get overwhelmed and feel like you have to be on there 24/7 for it to actually do what you want it to do for your business. And I've even seen this in some of the dietitian and nutrition groups I've been in on Facebook, where people are like, do you have to have a social media presence to have a successful online business? And technically the answer is no, but I do think that done properly, social media can be a really powerful tool for connecting with people who would want to work with you. So that's why we're going to keep talking about it, because it is something that I want to take the stress out of for you guys, so that way you can use it in a way that can grow your business without it being this big monster that you have to deal with. So let me introduce you to Martine Cadet. Martine is a social media content coach and creator for female coaches. She helps her clients convert viewers into paying clients, never run out of things to say, and become confident in connecting with their audience by mastering the skill of storytelling on their social platforms. Martine's systems help her clients increase their social media presence for their personal brand on Instagram and Facebook organically. She's a mom of two, a wife, and a sister who decided to go for her dream and design an online business that excites her every single day. Martine is the founder and owner of Kaderique Media, LLC, a boutique digital media agency supporting small business owners to help them brand themselves online and expand their visibility on her TV network, Visualize and Create Network. Her website is martinecadet.com, and you can connect with her on Instagram at Martine_cadet. All right, so Martine has a lot to share with us about using social media successfully, being consistent, coming up with content. So I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. And without further ado, here is Martine Cadet. All right, everybody. Well, I am so excited to have with us on the show today, Martine Cadet. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast, Martine.
Thank you so much, Laura. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. And we don't talk a ton about social media on this show because it's definitely not an area of my expertise, but I know it's something that for the business owners out there, there's a lot of questions on and maybe some nerves about it, or maybe just some overall just distaste for social media. So I'm hoping that our conversation today can help people feel a little bit more excited about it. So how did you get into helping people market on social media?
I love that question. And yes, I can absolutely relate to anyone listening to this who's feeling so frustrated with social media, because I'll tell you, it's through that frustration myself that I decided to figure it out. I wanted to build a business and I wanted to do it while I was working my 6-figure corporate job. And I figured, well, listen, social media is pretty big. How do I do that? And so I did everything that most of us do, which is posting content. But I did not understand that there needed to be a strategy behind what I was doing, because I realized I wasn't converting and that frustrated me. And yet I was showing up with great content. And so, honestly, the reason why I went on Instagram and decided to go public with my Facebook profile page was really because I wanted to reach as many people as I possibly could to know about my expertise and how I can help them. And so that's how I got into the whole marketing on social media and trying to figure it out.
hmm Yeah, I feel like social media has been such an interesting evolution since I remember when Instagram got started. I think I got access to Facebook when I started college in 2005. So it's been something where when I started my business, it wasn't really a thing, or maybe we had like a Facebook page, but Instagram wasn't really that big for business. So it's been really an interesting experience to watch the evolution of especially Instagram and seeing like how that affects people's business growth and just the opportunities that it creates with that particular tool. So, what would be a non-negotiable when it comes to marketing on social media successfully?
Oh, being consistent, honestly, and truly wanting to use that social media platform that you're on as a mean for you to start a conversation. I always say this to my clients, even to myself, to my team. I said, listen, it's about conversation to conversion. It's not content to conversion, it's conversations first. And so, that to me, the engagement, the genuine engagement that is absolutely important in order for you to have a successful social media marketing campaign.
hmm And we hear this word consistency a lot. Is there a specific way that you define consistency?
I do, Laura, I do. Listen, I'm a mom, I have 2 kids, and I was building my visibility online while working a day job. And so being consistent was absolutely challenging. I was hearing stories about you should post every 2 hours, you should post every 5 hours. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm at work and I'm not sure that I can. And that's how I ended up figuring out that there are scheduling tools available. So that was nice. But then you have to create the content. And so I was like, well, let me understand my audience first. Let me understand how they're showing up when I share my content and understand how consistent I need to be based on that and how my life is really. I have volleyball practices to go to with my daughter, right? So I would say, and this is what I tell my clients all the time, consistency is based on what you want it to be. So, just to put it into context, if you say starting next month, I'm going to be going live on Instagram every Monday because you can, all I would say to you is stick to it, right? Because then your audience is going to come to expect. And that's going to be for them your consistency. And the beauty of you taking control of that consistency is that you're going to move away from feeling frustrated about trying to be part of this race of showing up on social media all day, every day, when in fact
hmm
that is not the way to go about it.
Yeah, that would be really scary if to be effective on Instagram, you had to post every 2 hours. It's like, I don't know how anyone would have time for that. I mean, I suppose there are people, like I know there's a couple of Instagram experts out there that do post that regularly, but they'll even say, this is my full-time job, so you do not need to necessarily be doing this. Now, let's talk a little bit about building community on social media. What's your perspective on that? Is that something that is still possible with the way that the apps work now, or is it like you're really just out there selling stuff?
No, I think community is so important in the online space. And at the top of the conversation, you had mentioned how social media has evolved over the years, right? And today, as we're speaking, we have Clubhouse. It's been almost a year now since it's been the thing. And now we have another platform that's emerging called Solve that is all about
Oh gosh,
community.
another one. I haven't even heard of that one.
It's all about community again, right? And so I think people, especially with what we've been going through, unfortunately, Laura, with the pandemic and really, craving that human connection and feeling the need to be in a space where we feel like we belong and we feel valued, community is even more important. And so for me personally, I have built my business, my brand by building my own community. I use Facebook for that. I have a private Facebook group community. And to be honest with you, that is one of the ways I was able to start monetizing for my business while working my day job is having my community. And you're mentioning selling. And, at first, when you look at building a community with the mindset of wanting to sell, it's going to be challenging, right? I believe, and that's been my experience, and that's when I saw the change. Once I changed my mindset to having this community to really serve my people and really gather quality members inside my community that want to be there and building the rules and building the momentum and really checking in on them, it was a no-brainer for me to share with them, hey guys, I just put this program together, and it was just natural for them to say yes. And
Hmm.
still today. And so community is important. I think it's going to be something that is not going to go away as we continue to be online. And so there are plenty of platforms other than Facebook that gives us the opportunity to build great communities.
Hmm. Now, I feel like something I've always struggled with is with those free Facebook groups is like actually getting engagement. I've had a couple of Facebook groups that I've built and then eventually gotten rid of because it was just like, this isn't really doing anything. I feel like this isn't the best use of my time. So on the flip side, I've definitely heard of lots of business owners having a great level of success with their Facebook groups. And I'm in a few Facebook groups where I'm pretty sure the person does sell their stuff to the members. So do you have any like quick tips or starting places for people who are like, I want to do a Facebook group to create a community, but I don't know how to do it in a way that's actually going to make people participate?
I love that. Well, I have three simple tips to get you started, or perhaps look into your own Facebook group that you have today and where you're wondering, how do I ramp up the engagement, right? Because that's the most challenging question I get from clients when they talk to me about Facebook groups. How do I get people to wake up and talk, Martine? And I'll tell you, when I started my Facebook group, I had 22 dormant members, literally. And I was posting content, great content, I know it was, but nothing was happening, right? And so I was pretty frustrated. And again, I said, no, I'm not going to archive this group. I'm going to figure this out. And so, one of the three tips that I would say is, are you curating members that are qualified? Because I know that so many of us, we like the big following number, but the reality is the quality over the quantity is much better. I have clients that have 500 members in their groups and they're doing very well, right? They're monetizing it. Yet I know that I've been in groups that have over 10,000 members and they're struggling, right, to get anyone to purchase anything or, talk. And so I would say to start off is to have the right mindset as far as presenting this group and accepting members that are qualified. And so how would you do that? Get those pre-questions really, really clear so that when you review them, you also make the decision, right, to accept or not accept. And the last two things that I would say is one, you want to do conversation type of posting content inside the group. It's a community. People love to talk about themselves, right? And so you want to really make it the place that you want it to be, right? If you want the vibe to be high vibe, if you want the vibe to not be high vibe, just create that content and ask those conversation starters, I like to say, type of content, right? When's your birthday? Mine's September 19, which it is, by the way. And, people are going to engage. They're going to be like, oh, she wants to get to know me, right? And then the last thing that I would say is definitely pay attention to your members, right? When you have a Facebook group community, Facebook in the analytics of the group, it gives you information. Who are the top contributors, right? Who were the ones that recently joined the group or as they've been in the group for a certain amount of time. And with that information, we might as well use it as the admins of our groups. Let's message our members, right? I've noticed you've been in the group for a couple of months. For example, you could say, I just want to check in and make sure that you're aware that on Sundays we do this, this, and that. If you have any questions, I'm the admin. Feel free to reach out, right? And make them feel good. Now, I have to say really quickly that when you are messaging your members, be very careful not messaging a lot of people at the same time, like really quickly, like a robot, because you can be, put away from the app. Facebook
put in Facebook jail.
Facebook jail, yes, Facebook jail. Facebook police really happens. I've been in Facebook jail.
Yeah, me too.
Too fast, right?
Me
so
too.
Know exactly what I mean. And so the reason why I'm saying let's be careful messaging our members, especially if they're not friends to our account, it's going to flag you. And so those are the 3 tips I have really quickly to get started. 1, make sure that you have the right mindset that you want quality members inside the group. And by doing that, you got to put your 3 questions and make sure you vet everyone that comes in and don't be afraid to decline if you know that they're not a fit. And the second thing is do conversation starter posts as content. And the last thing I would say is definitely reach out to your members and every now and then and do a quick check-in with them.
Yeah. It's so funny with that, vetting the members thing. I feel like it's very tempting to just let anybody in that's requesting because our thought is like, well, why would they be requesting to be in this group if they weren't actually someone who was qualified? But I've definitely had that before where it's weird. It's like you'll just get these random requests and you'll kind of look at their profile or something and it's like, who is this person? Like if it's like a group for women with PCOS and a man tries to join, it's like, is that really like the right place for you to be? So it's just funny, I don't just go around joining random groups that have nothing to do with stuff I'm interested in. So it's weird to think that other people do. Of course, it could be like bots or something, I'm sure, but it is something where I think giving people permission to decline requests, I know it can feel a little scary to say no to people, but I think that's super important.
Yes, it is. And it's interesting to mention that Facebook recently, it's been a couple of months now, put in an option now when you decline a member's request, you can select to say why to them. And so again, that sense of community, right? I have yet to do that, to be honest with you. I'm going to test it, but it's there. The option is there for you to click decline, and then you can tell to the account, you can send them a message saying, oh, you're not a great fit for the group because XYZ, if you wanted to, but you don't have to.
Yeah. Well, and even if somebody doesn't answer the questions, it's like that might be a reason to decline them. And you could say, hey, if you want to be in the group, please make sure you answer the questions. That's a required part of joining or something. So there could be some times where that actually is helpful if you're like, maybe they just didn't see that there was questions. Because I know sometimes with Facebook, especially if you're joining on your phone, it's like you may not even see that there were questions to answer. So now as far as staying consistent, whether it's being consistent with a group on Facebook or being consistent on Instagram, you already mentioned how consistency is individual and, what might be one person's idea of consistency doesn't have to be yours. And I know we've talked about this with my clients inside of my Nutrition Business Accelerator program because it's like a lot of people have a lot of adverse feelings around social media and they're like, I don't want to be on it all the time. I don't want to be attached to my phone. And we've mentioned like, what if it's just 2 days a week that you show up? Like, it doesn't have to be crazy. And that's like a place that you can commit to. So are there any tips that you have for our listeners who want to be consistent on social media, except that it doesn't have to be 7 days a week, like 10 times a day that you're on there? Like, what would be some ways that they could plan to be consistent or really execute that effectively?
Oh, I love that question only because I remember asking myself that question exactly, sitting in my cubicle and thinking to myself, what, how do I do this with everything I have in life? And so here's what I would say: two things. One, you have to commit to want to sit down and plan out your content. And so it is imperative for you as a business owner to set your goals, right? Understand your financial goals for the month, for the quarter, whichever way you plan. And because essentially we're posting on social media to bring awareness to the amazing things that we have. And so commit to wanting to sit down and plan. Because then once you do that, in my opinion, and that's what I do on a weekly basis or even on a monthly basis, whatever your cadence is, you are going to want to sit down for whether it's an hour, 2 hours, and really map out what your social voice is going to look like for the upcoming month, the upcoming week, or again, as far as you want to go. Based on, I'm launching a new program. Okay, so what does that look like? When is that open cart date? Let's reverse engineer, which means maybe we need to go on IGTV and go live and do this and do that. And you'll start turning on that creative, we're not on Canva yet at that point, right? We're just like really visualizing and really planning out what it's going to look like. And then the next thing and second thing that I say is it's time to create it, right? And so because you know those content pillars that you've identified, whether it's we need to talk about the new launch of the program, XYZ, we need to remind our audience that we have that and this, we need to build some personality in our content, like you line list all these things, then we go and create on Canva. And it's going to be easier that way. Because a lot of us, we go on Canva first and we're like, okay, what am I going to create? So define first your plan and then go and create and leverage those scheduling tools as much as you possibly can. I love using Facebook Creator Studio for that reason. It's free. It's provided by Facebook and it posts for you. And if you schedule everything, it posts for you on your Instagram feed. It can post videos. Facebook Business Suite, also provided by Facebook, lets you schedule and post for you your Instagram and Facebook stories. Now, this is for free, but I know that there are plenty of other tools out there that you're probably using as well, Laura. Maybe, some of the listeners are using from Planoly, Hootsuite, like there's tons of them. I'd say leverage them. Because when you're having that session of creation for your content, you can create, save, schedule, and take that energy that you saved from wondering, what am I going to post on Instagram tomorrow to let me engage, let me connect with potential new clients in the direct messenger, let me do this type of work instead of worrying about what to post.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have assistants that help me with the posting that we do. And obviously we do the podcast, and the podcast is at least 2 of our pieces of content that go out on Instagram on a weekly basis. So every single Monday we have a post related to whatever the topic is for the podcast. So it's really interesting because obviously I have a team, and before I had a team, I would do this myself. The consistency piece for me a lot of times is around the actual content itself, which the podcast is the content that we're putting out on Mondays. But then we just use that to then create an awareness post and a link to that episode in our social media. And so that means that's consistent every Monday. So it's interesting. For me, a lot of times there's like one piece of consistency that I commit to that then breeds other pieces of consistency. And then it's like we never have to wonder what's going to be posted on Monday because we know it's the podcast, right? So it's like, I think if people can get consistent with one thing, one piece of content, it doesn't necessarily have to be oh, you're consistently creating new stuff for Instagram. But if you're like a blogger, for example, if you're a podcaster, if there's something else you're doing, if you do videos on YouTube, you can then repurpose that and be like, that's what goes out on the Instagram on these days. So I think sometimes people think it all has to be like new stuff all the time. And even like repurposing old stuff that they've done, that might be something that you do on a regular basis and it's still consistency, right?
Absolutely. I love repurposing, Laura. And for you listening, listen, take inventory. Before I had several speaking engagement most recently, and the common question that I kept receiving was, oh, based on this presentation, Martine, should I just delete my entire Instagram and start new? I'm like, uh, I would suggest that. There are pieces that you probably, to your point, Laura, like there's things that you've done in the past that could be repurposed. You probably just need to re-edit that video to, really bring light to that message you had on that video, or perhaps you need to filter that image to black and white versus, I don't know. There's so many things you could do with content. That's why I love it so much, to bring it back to life. And so instead of spending the time to go through the feed all the way to last year and start deleting things, and also, and I share this all the time with people, I'm like, why would you want to delete? This is your journey. This is your brand evolution. And it's beautiful to see where you've been and where you are today. Don't take it away. Do better. Spend the time to create better. And yes, to repurposing for sure. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I do think people tend to overestimate how polished things need to be on social media. And yeah, I mean, if like all of your photos are like, pictures of your cat, then maybe that's not going to be super effective, right? But if you just start adding the stuff that's the content that you want to share, eventually that won't even be stuff that people see. And it's like, I mean, I have stuff from probably 10 years ago on my Instagram. I'm not sure how far you'd have to scroll because I think I have like 2,000 or 3,000 posts at this point, but it's like, I don't know how far someone would have to go to get to the content that's like literally nothing to do with the work that I do. So I feel like, I mean, I've seen people start Instagram accounts over just to like try to get a more narrowed audience that's more niche specific, but I think that's a different strategy than saying, I just don't want to have people see my old stuff because it's not good enough or something like that.
Right. I agree.
So another question that a lot of people tend to have is in the process of creating content. I know that can be a big sticking point for a lot of people where they're like, all right, I get the idea of being consistent. I get the idea of repurposing and, scheduling and all of that, but it's the actual content creation piece that freaks me out. Do you have any tips and strategies for like doing that in an effective way that maybe can be a little less scary for people?
Absolutely. And it's all going to depend on the content type that we're creating, right? Because on social, as we know, we can share a picture or we can share a video. And so at the end of the day, the content altogether, it's not just the picture and the video, it's also the caption, right? Attached to that piece of content. And so the piece of advice that I have is always put yourself as the business owner in the shoes of who you are looking to serve and help. And when you do that, you're going to put yourself in a creation mode as to where your audience is currently living, like what's their struggle and what's their dream. And that's going to turn on your creative thinking to maybe remind you of where you were before you got to where you are today, that you know that you can help others with. And so, what do I mean by that? Well, you're probably going to go through your photo gallery and end up on a picture that you took 10 years ago. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to share with my audience. This was me before, and look at me today. And this is the transformation that I was able to create to do for myself. And then that may prompt you to say, you know what? I'm going to do an Instagram carousel to share that journey, for example. But it starts with that creative and process creation part starts with us putting ourselves in the shoes and the life of the audience that we know we can serve, and reverse engineering into that and deciding, is today going to be a post about educating them about what's going on, or is it a reels that's going to entertain them, that I know that they're living with and struggling with all day, every day? Or is it going to be a Facebook Live where I'm going to share this particular journey, part of my journey that I know will resonate with them so that I can give them the call to action to come in and join my free challenge coming up, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by thinking that way, Laura, it's I have found, because I used to struggle with this as well, I have found that we remove ourselves from the self promoting type of post, because the self promoting type of post doesn't always resonate with our audience, honestly, because they're struggling and they're following you and I and you listening because they know you're an expert in what you do, and they're building that trust with you by checking in and seeing what you're sharing. So think about them first and create content based on your avatar and the person that you can serve, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I think something that you touched on that is super important, especially for any of you nutrition business owners out there, is this idea that like value isn't just the education piece. It's also that entertainment, it's that connection, it's the, belief shifting stuff. So I think when we stop worrying about, oh, it has to be this super educational evidence-based post about, how to do something and realize like you could post a quote and that could be value for your clients. Like just being a little bit more flexible as far as what types of content you post. And again, getting into your ideal client's shoes and thinking like what would benefit them and not like, oh, how do I, prove that I'm an expert with this stuff. So my final question for you is, and this is probably a quick one. Do you have a social media app that you either think is your favorite or you think is the best one out there?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Let's see. Considering that there's so many new ones coming out, and I'm like, oh my God, they're so good. And so I have to tell you, for me personally, Facebook has been a great app for me. Not only because I spoke at Facebook twice. The first time I spoke at Facebook was for Facebook Boost Your Business event back in 2018, helping small business owners understand how to use the app. So it was really, really fun. And the second time I spoke at Facebook was during a virtual event to support small business owners through the pandemic and sharing with them what they can do. And so I am part of the Facebook leaders community, but for my business, I have to tell you, it's been such a great app. One, because that's where my community lives, my Facebook group community that's grown. And I feel like I know every single one of the members. It's super, super fun. And it's also been a great app just to connect with people that I never thought I would ever know in my life. And I know sometimes we're like, well, the algorithm is not that great, but there's a way to work it. And honestly, it's through conversation for it to feed you the right people that it thinks you're going to want to connect with. And so far, it's done a good job. And so I love the flexibility of it. I love the features. There's tons of new features that they've been rolling out most recently that are exciting. And so I would pick Facebook, but I don't know if I'm going to say that 2 years or 5 years from now. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
So far, Facebook has been good to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think everyone's kind of got their own go-to, right? Some people are like super into Instagram. I haven't been on, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the one that you mentioned before that's like the audio, what? Clubhouse. I haven't been on that in so long, but that was like super hot for a period of time. And I think obviously just different people connect in different ways. And I think people can just figure out which one suits them best and go all in on that one and not worry about being on 8,000 different platforms that are coming out every single day.
That's right. That's one thing we don't want to do is exhaust ourselves in trying to be everywhere. Is it possible? Absolutely. Like, if you have help and support and you're at a point where you have a team that can potentially get you out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and keep you active on all of those platforms all at the same time, awesome. But if you're doing this on your own and you're feeling overwhelmed, pick one. Pick one. And the good news is with Facebook, alongside with Instagram, a lot of people have Facebook and Instagram. The good news is they're connected, right? If you share something on Instagram, it'll share on your Facebook business page. So there's ways to cross post and be able to have that visibility on both apps. And yeah, we don't know, for same here as far as Clubhouse. It was my daily thing. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but to your point, find the place that you are enjoying to be on, because that's going to also help the quality of your content. If you enjoy being on the platform, you're going to create amazing content. But if you're like dragging
Mm-hmm.
yourself, like, I don't want to go live, I hate going live, then Clubhouse may be the right place for you to go.
Yeah. Well, that is definitely good advice. Don't show up in that bad energy and think that it's going to work well, because it's probably not. People can pick up on that. Well, Martine, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise and helping take some of the stress out of social media. Where can people connect with you if they want to learn more about you and about how you can help them grow their social media to help them grow their business?
I love it. Thank you so much again, Laura, for having me. And so pretty simple. My name, martinecadet.com. Once you land there, you will have the opportunity to either connect with me on the social platform that I'm active on. You'll get to see what I have to offer to support you with your content and beyond. I'm all about building visibility using the internet as much as possible. And so I definitely would love to invite you to visit my website. And I also want to invite you to send me a message on Instagram once you find my handle. I'd love to chat with you. Let me know that you listened to this episode too. I'd love to know that that's where you're coming from. So martinecadet.com is my website. Yeah, best place to go.
Awesome. Well, we will link to that in the show notes along with your Instagram handle so people can find you super easily. So just head over to lauraschoenfeldrd.com, go to our podcast section, and you'll be able to find all that great information. Well, thank you again, Martine. It was super awesome to chat with you. And thanks to all of you for hanging out with us for the last half an hour. We'll look forward to seeing you here next week on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Are you a nutritionist or dietitian struggling to figure out how much to charge for your programs and services? Maybe you've heard that as a nutritionist, you should just charge what you're worth. But this way of thinking can cause you to either undercharge your clients or work yourself into the ground trying to earn your worth. As a healthcare provider, you can't set up a pricing structure that forces you to sacrifice your own health and well-being in the name of your business and your clients. But I promise it doesn't have to be this way. When you download my free profit planning workbook, I'll walk you step by step through the 10-step process for determining the right pricing for your nutrition business. As a nutritionist, you have the power to completely change someone's life for the better. There's huge value in that, so it's time to stop underselling what you do. By following along with this worksheet, you can determine exactly what you need to charge to achieve your revenue goals with ease. I'll teach you everything I've learned about pricing from growing my own nutrition business to over $250,000 in revenue annually and helping other dietitian and nutrition entrepreneurs hit their first $10,000 to $30,000 months and beyond. To get your free workbook, go to lauraschoenfeld.com/profit, PROFIT, and grab your copy today, so you no longer have to wonder how to set the right rates for your incredibly valuable nutrition services. That's lauraschoenfeld.com/profit. It's time to make the money that you deserve as a nutritionist, and I can't wait to help you get there.